I got some friends that killed some people, but my friends have always been killing people. I did not break the law.
He kept the body for 1 to 2 days, and he laid the body on the edge of his tub and, quote, slit open his belly, end quote. He took pictures of him. He defleshed him, acidified the flesh and skull, and kept the skull.
He had killed more than a dozen people and eaten some of them. His Milwaukee apartment that was literally a house of horror.
I deserve certainly the most extreme punishment society has, and I think society deserves to be protected from me and from others like me.
Homicide.
Van Houten claims she originally...
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this crazy episode of Chillin' and Killin'. So you can kind of see what our topic is. We're the police.
We the police.
We the police
Wait,
tonight.
that's a good way to kick it off. We the police. Yeah.
We the police.
Everyone just hung up. Everybody just hung up, shut it off. Like, nope, don't want to hear it.
We needed a light. Like, where you been? Like an interrogation kind of?
Yeah, you're right. We did. Yeah.
All right, everybody. So yeah, tonight's episode, Kirsten's gonna run through some cat ears. Don't go. Well, you know, cat ears. This is what I got. You got to deal with what I have. You know, cat ears.
We are our own rainbows. Okay, so we do whatever we want. This is fun. You know, listen, getting arrested by a cop wearing, you know, ears would probably be a little more.
I feel like if I was a cop, I probably would still do this. You know what I mean? Like, could you see me pull people over with like ears like that? I totally would.
They'd be like, Heather, you cannot wear a Hello Kitty bulletproof vest. And you'd be like, stop me. I dare you.
Right.
Yeah.
And why? Why? So yeah, no.
But yeah,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do what I want.
Oh my God. All right. Listen, you're already being like, you know, like tough like an officer. So just take a step back. Okay?
I have been, you guys, engulfed in this for like, let's see, I've gone down my rabbit hole for a week and a half now. So yeah. I feel like I could go apply for the academy at this point. Like, I just really feel like I'm there. Let's see. Reminds me of an episode of CSI.
With the furries.
There we go. With the furries. There we go. It is.
Oh, Lord. But yeah, so to all of our viewers, so all jokes aside, so we are doing an episode tonight on law enforcement, you know, people, detectives, police officers, whatever you want to call it, you know, who are actually criminals, who are falling sort of under the radar of the law because of their position. And we all kind of discussed this, and I just want to put out sort of an official disclaimer about this episode tonight. We usually, you know, have a deep sense of humor to our shows, but this episode is going to be a little bit darker. We always talk about not so nice people, but tonight we're going to cover a couple people, especially one in particular that really, really is quite disturbing, even to people like us who we, you know, research this every day. We love it. I mean, it's to the point where, you know, the three of us actually, it made us take a couple steps back and really think about, you know, the situation. So all I'm going to say is viewer discretion, you know, be advised that we will, when we get to Heather's story, I think that that's probably the roughest one here tonight. If you find yourself with a sensitive stomach or you get offended by kind of graphic details, graphic images, stories, stuff like that, we will let you know with some warning when to just kindly, you know, back off of the episode, because we are, you know, we always say we give it to you straight. We give you the details, and we're going to do that tonight, but it is quite disturbing. So I was just saying to the girls before we came on that we sort of we're so immersed in this topic all the time, you know, for fans of this, that sometimes certain really dark stories make us step back and go, wow, like we joke a lot about this and we love to read about it and stuff, but there's really truly some evil out there that is to a level that we can't even comprehend. So we're going to cover all that tonight. So just be advised, graphic images, graphic details, very not nice stories. So we'll let you know.
This was your warning. So this is your warning.
Yeah.
Leave now or forever hold your peace.
Leave now or forever hold your peace.
There we go. So
yeah. So and I'm just going to throw this out there too. So as I also said in some of my posts, this is not a forum to defend law enforcement nor bash them. You know, these people save lives every day, but as I said, there's bad in every single group across the board. So we're just going to cover, you know, some people that you should trust, but are using their power in the wrong way. So, and no, I'm not talking about the presidential race. Just kidding.
Oh, Jesus, Christmas. Stay out of the comments for that.
Yeah. All right. So I am going to actually kick tonight's show off. Okay. And I'm going to be talking to you all about Drew Peterson. So that name might strike familiarity to some of you. So this story I've always been obsessed with the story because I just can't believe this guy's anything you watch on him, his narcissism, his pompous attitude, like, you know, confidence is not even a word. This would be an understatement. So thank you. There was a picture of Drew Peterson right there. So I'll just kind of sum this up for you guys. So Drew Peterson right now, so he is a retired police sergeant from Bolingbrook, Illinois. So a little bit on his earlier years. So after he graduated high school in 1972, this guy's been married a lot of times, so just get a notepad or try to keep up. So he graduates in 1972 and marries his first wife in 1974. Her name is Carol. And then proceeds, that's not Carol. So, but just to show you him again, okay? And he joins.
My bad.
just take a step back. Don't make me get my stick, okay? Just take a step back. So after marrying his first wife, Carol, Drew Peterson joins the Army. And after 2 years of service, joins the police department. And after serving as a patrol officer, he was promoted to narcotics drug unit and worked as an undercover officer. And in 1979, actually received the Police Officer of the Year award. He received several awards over his time on the police force. So you never know, I guess. So he's married to Carol. So Carol files for divorce 6 years after they're married. When she learns that Peterson is having an affair while he's undercover. So this is the first of many, many affairs. This is his first wife, finds out he's cheating and files for divorce. They have 2 sons together, Stephen and Eric. So Drew marries his second wife, Victoria Connolly. Again, not the picture. Nope. Marries his second wife, Victoria Connolly, in 1982. And so you'll notice a pattern sort of across all of these marriages. So Connolly later talks about how abusive and controlling Drew Peterson is, not only to her, but to her daughter from a previous marriage. So Connolly tells police that Peterson threatened to kill her and make it look like an accident. This is also a threat that he'll make to future wives. But at this
future
time,
wives.
Yeah. There was some trouble going on with him as well, you know, with his job. He was under investigation under his unit for failing to report bribes and misconduct while undercover. So he was temporarily fired and then rehired but demoted. So this was, you know, giving added stress to the relationship and causing some problems with this marriage. But all in all, he was always sort of known to be a very abusive man. And always telling his wives, you know, I could kill you. You would disappear and nobody would know. I can do whatever I want with you.
It's that narcissism.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I'm in charge. That's how it works. So He then starts having an affair with his third wife, Kathleen Savio, while he's still married to Connolly. And Connolly eventually divorced him in 1992 when he started dating Kathleen Savio. So Kathleen Savio is the woman in the picture with the black eye, next to Drew Peterson right there. Heather's all excited.
Okay.
She's like, let me get the button. Yes. So that is Kathleen Savio. And Kathleen is largely what my story is about. So they get married 2 months after his divorce is finalized from his second wife, Connolly. He marries Kathleen Savio in 1992, and they have 2 sons together, Thomas and Christopher. So their relationship very quickly turns rocky. In 2001, Savio learns that Drew has been cheating on her with Stacy Ann Kales, a front hotel clerk in Bolingbrook, Illinois. And then I'll get into that. Stacy is sort of the second big part of my story here. But in 2002, Kathleen Savio goes out and gets an order of protection against Drew Peterson due to domestic abuse. Between 2002 and 2004, there were over 18 police calls that she made about Drew. Domestic disturbance reports filed at the, oh my gosh, Russie, don't even get me started about the Petersons. We were just talking about this. I will not get sidetracked, but maybe we could touch on that at the end. Okay. So she files all these reports for abuse, breaking and entering, domestic disturbances, domestic abuse, all that stuff. And even, adds in there that he, on visitations with the kids, he brings them home late. She can't get a hold of him, stuff like that. But this is important. So she even sends a letter to the Will County State's Attorney's Office telling them that she really fears that Peterson will kill her. And this is the really sad part. And you'll see this partially with also the next woman I'm going to talk about. But this is sort of the support that law enforcement was giving Drew Peterson. Kathleen Savio went countless times to the police department and said, I've been beaten up. He's threatening to kill me, all kinds of stuff. He threw me across a table, put me against a wall. And they pretty much stood across the counter from her and just went, you're not going to get anywhere with us. You might as well just go out the door, because they knew him personally. So then she started trying to contact other districts, other police forces, not where she lived. And he and his friends had already contacted all of them as well. And they pretty much said to her, you're not going to get any help from us. We know him. He's a stand-up guy. He's amazing. We don't believe anything you're saying. He tells us all the stories about you and how, you are as a woman, and we're not going to help you. So basically, Kathleen Savio becomes very withdrawn from her family and her friends, throughout this relationship, very, very stifled under his control. And at this point, he's now seeing his fourth wife. Like I said, so he's dating Stacy at this point. And they get divorced, and his divorce with Kathleen Savio is finalized in 2003. So in 2003, Drew, who is now 49 years old, marries Stacy Ann Kales, who is 19. So he's 49, she's 19. No judgment, just saying. And yes, there she is.
Oh, lots of judgment. I have lots.
Okay,
of
fine. Yes, judgment coming out.
I am judging. I am Judge Judy.
Judging what? Oh, I wish you were Judge Judy. She's.
I know.
She'd be like, no, I'm not having any of this. This is not right.
No.
So he marries Stacy. They have 2 kids together, Anthony and Lacey. So, there you go, Rusty. Another Lacey. I feel like this is all, a weird conspiracy. But anyway, so at this point,
connected.
Yeah. And Stacy also, just for the record, Stacy ends up adopting Kathleen Savio's 2 children that she had with Drew. And we'll talk about that. But, even though she was 19, and judgment aside, Stacy was really known as, a sweetheart, for, a really sweet person. So they get married. So the last weekend of February 2004, Peterson had visitation rights. He had the kids from his marriage with Kathleen Savio. And so he goes to her house a Sunday in February to return the children, but no one answered the door and no one was home. No one's answering the telephone. So he pretty much just puts the kids back in the car and says, okay, I can't reach your mom. So by Monday, March 1st, there's been no sign of Kathleen Savio. No one's heard from her. So Peterson visits the house and conveniently asks some neighbors to go into the house with him because everybody knew about their divorce. They did not have a good relationship. Even after the divorce, he would visit the house to pick up the children with Stacy in the car. And no one believes Kathleen ever really had a problem with Stacy, but she would argue with him over, his misconduct and his deeds. And there's even times where Stacy would say, I saw him put her against a wall and whisper something to her, and she would run off crying and screaming, and he threatened to kill her all the time. So anyway, he asks some neighbors to go into the house with him, where they find Kathleen in a waterless bathtub. And there is the really sad picture of that. Her hair was damp, but the tub was dry, and there was a huge gash on her head. So she was unresponsive. So obviously the neighbors call the police. He calls the police. And the original examination of the body and the hearing pronounced her death as an accidental drowning. But Kathleen's family and her friends
accidental.
and everything. Yeah. There's a lot of details of this about why the tub was dry, how the water drained, all that stuff. But basically it was ruled an accidental drowning. But her friends and family already had their suspicions, obviously, about Drew Peterson. They knew this wasn't right. So the coroner's jury that ruled Kathleen's death an accident included several police officers that personally knew Drew on a friendship level and vouched for him as a good, safe man, who would never hurt her. So his alibi also for Kathleen's death was his fourth wife, Stacy, who provided him an alibi and said that she was with him and he couldn't have been at the house. So Stacy at this point also is really suffering from her relationship with Drew. She did tell others that later that she woke up on this night, the night that Kathleen died, and Drew was not home. He was not in bed with her. He wasn't there. She checks the house. He's nowhere. His car is gone. She calls him, all through the night on her cell phone. He doesn't answer. And he returns home late that night, early into the morning hours the next day with a trash bag full of women's clothing that is not Stacy's clothing. And pretty much tells her straight out, you're going to give me an alibi. You're going, when the news of Kathleen's death came through very quickly, he says, you're going to tell, didn't say why, just said to her, you're going to tell people that I was home last night, correct? And she goes, yep, okay. And says, he was with me and that's that. So their relationship is really not going well. Like I said, before she died, he saw the abuse even just in the driveway that he showed to his ex-wife. She was being very controlled by him. He was tracking her. There was trackers on her car, her cell phone, and Stacy was really kind of scared of her husband at this point. So in August of 2007, she talks to a pastor at her church. So there's a little bit of controversy over whether this should be allowed as, whether this should have been confidential. Was she talking to him sort of more as a pastor, like a spiritual guide, or was she talking to him as a friend? No one really knows. But either way, he reports that Stacy tells this pastor that Drew had killed Kathleen and made it look like an accident, and tells him that she is very, very afraid of her husband. And also tells the pastor that she provided Drew's alibi on the night that Kathleen was murdered. And that Drew told her, you're going to provide me with a false alibi. So she tells the pastor all of this. She goes, he killed her and made it look like an accident. And I know this, but didn't really go into, details. Yeah. So this is August of 2007. So 2 months later in October, she's supposed to help her sister with some painting on her house. and she just never shows up. So she's missing. Her sister officially files a missing persons report early in the morning on October 29th. And so Peterson tells the cops that he had called his wife to say, where are you? Like, people are wondering where you are. You're missing. You haven't been home. And she tells him, I left you for another man. I have left you. I'm with another man. I'm not coming back home. But everyone that knew her said she would absolutely never have abandoned her children. And now, mind you, they had 2 children and she adopted Kathleen Savio's 2 children. And they said she was absolutely wonderful to these kids. And there's no way she would have abandoned her children. So this is what Drew is telling people. She left me. She left with another man. And no trace of her has ever been found. Still to this day, Stacy is missing. So as suspicion, so it falls on Drew Peterson. But with all of this sort of media and police scrutiny of this, and now she's missing, this reopens interest in Kathleen Savio's death, who, it was ruled an accident. She's buried. It's gone. But now this reopens interest. So it ends up that they have her body exhumed. And her body goes under a forensic examination by a doctor who was not familiar with Drew Peterson, did not know anything about him, was not friends with him, anything like that. And at this point, immediately her death is ruled a homicide, not an accident.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So the medical examiner concluded that Savio had died of drowning, but following a struggle, a very extreme struggle. Postmortem photos showed extensive bruising and scraping to her back, her legs, her torso, her face, her shoulders, everywhere. And so state's attorney James Glasgow, so remember that name, James Glasgow, said that after examining the evidence in the case, he believed the death was a homicide that was staged to look like an accident, which is literally the threat that he had given at least 2 to 3 of his wives. I'm going to kill you and make it look like an accident, and they'll never find you, and I'll never be convicted. So staged to look like an accident. So in February 2008, it was announced officially by a pathologist that her death was, in fact, a homicide. So this is where it gets kind of sad. A friend of Drew's, and this is some of the stuff that came up in the case, when he was actually arrested and he's on trial, but a friend of Drew's admitted that he and Drew bought 3 blue plastic containers from a cable company, again with the big ass plastic containers that everybody uses these. It's like killing 101 apparently, from a cable company. And I don't really know why he would have had pictures of these, but the friend gives pictures to the police of these 3 containers that they bought. And his stepbrother, so Drew Peterson's stepbrother, his name is Thomas Morphy, attempted suicide 2 days after allegedly helping Peterson carry one of these big blue plastic containers from Drew's house to his SUV, because he said he really fears that he probably helped to dispose of Stacy's body. And he tries to commit suicide because he can't live with himself. Yeah. So in 2009, Drew Peterson is indicted for killing Kathleen Savio. A lot of the case relied on hearsay, he said, she said evidence, which typically is not allowed, but Illinois legislature passed Drew's law in 2008, which allows for some exceptions for what people say that they heard or, overheard, stuff like that, and allowing some of the evidence into the trial. That's also the reason that he literally has appealed and fought loudly still to this day, saying that a lot of the trial was he said, she said stuff. But again, a certain amount of that, like he's saying that when she spoke to the pastor, that should never have been allowed, because it's like when you talk to a therapist. But the pastor was saying, well, I wasn't her therapist. She was just talking to a friend. But anyway, a witness at Peterson's murder trial named Jeff said that Peterson had offered him $25,000 to hire someone to kill Kathleen Savio. So someone did get up there on the witness stand and say, yeah, before she died, he tried to hire me to kill her. So
there's a situation.
Yeah. So in September of 2012, he's convicted. and is given a 38-year prison term for Kathleen Savio's death, not for Stacy's, because she has not been found. And he was moved quite a few times to and from some facilities in Illinois. But right now, he's being held in a state facility outside of Illinois, and the location is not being shared for security reasons. He was attacked a couple times in prison, not really seriously, but they've moved him to a spot where nobody even knows where he is, and he doesn't have access to anybody because he's been attacked so many times in prison. So this is 2012. In 2015, Peterson is now charged with attempting to put a hit on James Glasgow. Okay, so on May 31st, 2016, he's found guilty and sentenced to an additional 40 years on top of his 38 years after being convicted of trying to arrange a hit on James Glasgow, who is the Will County State's attorney. He continues to maintain his innocence in any of these actions to what happened to his third or his fourth wife, so Kathleen or Stacy. But the interesting kind of ending to the story is, so Drew's former attorney, Joel Brodsky, who represented Drew through all of his legal proceedings, everything, is now, right now, speaking up, saying that he knows fully the absolute truth of what happened to both wives, Kathleen and Stacy. He knows everything and says he even knows the whereabouts of Stacy. So it doesn't say I know the location of her body, nothing like that, but says I know where Stacy is located. But obviously, due to tons and tons and tons of legal red tape, gag orders, legal documents, everything, he hasn't officially spoken out yet. But he has gone many times publicly, very recently, saying, I'm thinking about revealing what happened to Stacy and revealing where she is located. Maybe it's just time. It's something that weighs very heavily on my conscience. And he also says, I cannot believe that Drew is still taking zero responsibility for what happened to Kathleen or Stacy. And I really think it's time that I speak out and tell people exactly what happened to both of these women. But like I said, they're hitting him with every single legal stop sign possible. And you never know if that's really true, but he is saying, I know everything. I was his lawyer. He told me everything, but I was representing him. So It is what it is. But not only
there's a lot of red tape when it comes to an attorney-client privilege,
But not only just Kathleen, and I really strongly encourage you guys all to watch some. They made several movies about this, which are excellent. I will say they're excellent. And he really was that typical, I don't stereotype or anything like that, but you can just look at pictures of this guy. You can watch clips of him, and he is so narcissistic and pompous to a degree that I can't even explain. He literally just did whatever he wanted and told every single woman and his wife, you won't get anywhere because these are my friends. These police officers are my friends. They're not going to listen to you. Every time they filed, even sometimes they went to hospitals and filed domestic disputes reports, they were thrown out. Nobody can locate any of these. It's just insane. Melise, yes, I am going to tell you the name of one of my favorite movies. And I just have to look up the name, but I believe that Rob Lowe played Drew Peterson. And I think that Kaylee Cuoco played Stacy, but I'm going to look it up right now so that I can tell you guys where it's streaming. But
what an ego jump to have Rob
Lowe.
But
he literally was. But you know what the sad thing is? And I have to say this. Okay, so the movie that I think you guys should watch, it's called Untouchable. Let's see, watch options. It's only on Philo. I don't even know what that is, but you can rent it on Amazon Prime or YouTube Video or anything like that. But it has Rob Lowe and Kaylee Cuoco, and a couple other, kind of bigger people. And so the really sad thing with all of this is pretty much every police officer across the board that was friends with him stuck up for him through this whole thing. But you find out in the end they were really doing it sort of out of loyalty, not because they actually believed that he was a good person. Because when this all came to light and came to fruition, they all came forward and went, like, he was even bad on the job, very abusive, very, breaking rules left and right. And they all came forward later, in the 11th hour and said, yeah, we always knew he was shady and something was going on, but we just, it's our job to protect our brothers and this and that. And they're like, no. Like, state's attorneys were like, you had women coming in bloody with bruised faces saying that they were writing letters saying he's going to kill me.
It's your job to follow the law.
And the really sad was Kathleen even went to her family and said, this is so sad. She went to her family and actually said very calmly, but really flat, depressed, he is not, I think, she said shortly before her death, he is going to kill me. I know this for a fact. And when he does, will you take care of my children? Like, will you make sure that they're good? Will you make sure? He knows the law in and out. He knows how to get away with it, and he knows how to get into my house. He knows everything about he knows everything, and he can do it. And flat out said he's going to kill me. So, and he did. He killed her. And that's what's so sad because, and no one still knows. So I should throw this in there. I forget who, because I didn't write it down. I'll look it up and post it afterwards, but it might be her sister. Someone says that they think they've located Stacy. They found some blue barrels in some sort of waterway. And this is what I couldn't get any clear details on this. Apparently the barrels are there, and her sister, I think it was her sister, but called the cops many times and said, I think through her research or whatever she did, that this is where my sister is, and they won't go retrieve these barrels. They won't. They're floating in this dank waterway or whatever. And nobody to this point has gone and gotten these barrels. So they still don't know where Stacy is or what happened, but that is Drew Peterson. And there are lots and lots, like I said, of movies out there about him. And you guys can read, deeper into this. It's literally the craziest story, but nobody would take any of these women seriously because he was a police officer.
And that's my thing, like with the police and like you said, like they had a loyalty. I am like, does anybody out there have that much loyalty to their coworkers? Like, seriously, like I literally came to my job myself and I'm going to leave myself. And there's no way. Like, I love some of my coworkers, but no, like I don't have that much loyalty to my coworkers.
You know what? It's kind of like, well, for people who hate their job or who, to some people, coworkers are coworkers, but I do think like to law enforcement and to military and stuff like that, these aren't coworkers. They are family.
Brothers,
they take a whole different level of loyalty.
They take a full, thank you, Rusty. Yeah. They take a fully different level. And, I can see, I'm fair. I can see both sides. I can see knowing someone for 25 years or having a partner, and then someone goes, yeah, he did A, B, and C, or she did. And me going, no, I've known this person. But I also, like I said, people came forward later and said, we always knew he was kind of a shyster, like a shithead, but we just never imagined he was capable of all of this. But
people are different behind closed doors.
It's 100%. He really, though, if you watch like the trial of the car, he literally sits there with like a full grin, like yells to reporters, like he's just so like he thought that he was never going to get caught, and he did. So I mean, but he's in prison now. No one knows where he is. I'm sure somebody does, but and they still haven't found Stacy, which is really sad.
Pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Drew Peterson.
He wasn't cheating on her.
Not related to Scott Peterson, right?
No, they are not related. No, we were just talking about this before the show. I'm obsessed with Scott Peterson, Drew Peterson, and Michael Peterson, and none of them, are related. So it's like a Peterson thing, But
okay. Well, everybody, if you want to dive more into it, read or go watch the movies and Google.
So I highly recommend.
You did that really good.
Thank you. Thank you. There's
how many wives? You said he had so many wives. How many? Do you have a list of how many wives he had?
He had 4.
Okay. I thought it was going to be like 27.
Yeah. Again, I told you I left so much out. He got engaged again. Even after he was arrested, he was present, of course. But he got engaged again, but then eventually she backed out and was like, no.
Was he locked up when he got engaged? Because doesn't it happen a lot? Seems like a lot of these prisoners get engaged.
Marry their pen pals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prison
He
pen
was
pals.
engaged a 5th time because he kept saying, when I got out, he's still saying this, by the way, very cocky. When I get out, because he's also coming forward now saying he's going to do a book, and people need to hear my side of it. They need to hear my side of what happened. At the same time, his lawyer is saying, yeah, you need to hear my side of this. But he's saying, he literally laughs, like the pictures of him in cuffs, he's like laughing, and he's just like, I'm going to tell it, but they also, again, I will not continue to go on and on, but even if you look this story up, there is an inmate that he was in prison with for a long time that came forward and officially testified and said, he told me he killed her. Like, he told me he killed both of them and where they were and everything. And he came forward. But again, this is part of the stuff that was stricken because of all this hearsay bullshit. So, anyway, look it up. Drew Peterson, untouchable. He truly was untouchable until he murdered every freaking woman he ever met.
Then he was very touchable.
Yes, he was very untouchable. He was very untouchable. Yeah, so okay.
All right.
I'm
Next,
done. That's my
Gigi. Let's
story.
roll into Gigi's story.
Yes.
Okay, it's gonna go super fast because I know we need to get going on Heather's story. So we got Christopher Dorner.
Oh, you got your pictures, right?
Oh, yep, I got one.
Okay.
Oh, okay. He has kind eyes
and a beautiful smile. What did he do?
Hold that.
She's
Please
like,
hold
on.
So after filing a report accusing another officer of extreme and unnecessary force during an arrest, Dorner was let go from the LAPD in 2008. Feeling his termination was unjust, Dorner made an appeal, but the appeals court concluded that the LAPD Board of Rights had substantial evidence for its conclusion that Dorner was not credible in his allegations against the other officer. On February 1st, 2013, Dorner's revenge killing spree began with the murder of a couple in their vehicle, including the daughter of LAPD Captain Randall Kwan, who acted as his defense counsel in the hearings of the allegations. In his Facebook manifesto, Dorner admitted that he went after Kwan's daughter and her fiancé because he didn't think Kwan did a good enough job defending him. After examining the manifesto, the LAPD reopened the case of Dorner's release, and Chief Charlie Beck made a public statement to assure Dorner that they were serious about reviewing his dismissal. Meanwhile, police started a manhunt and offered a reward for Dorner because he took off, deeming him to be a domestic terrorist. In the days that followed, he ambushed and killed Officer Michael Crane and injured his partner while they were on patrol. Dorner's killing spree finally stopped on February 12th after an intense standoff and gunfight during which Deputy Jeremiah McKay was shot and killed. As officers tried to smoke him out with tear gas, they heard a single gunshot from inside the cabin. When Dorner's body was removed, the official cause of death was determined to be self-inflicted gunshot to the head, obviously. But that's the basic rundown. Told you what that was like 30 seconds.
You did make that short. You guys are ready for me, huh?
That was amazing.
Let me go ahead and get ready for my story. All right, once again.
Wait. This is official.
Graphic, everybody. So there you go. If your stomach is queasy,
good night. Have a lovely Thursday night. Click.
Goodbye.
We love you. We love you guys.
Bye, Felicia.
Yes.
This is going to be very disturbing, guys.
So I have been in this story about a week and a half, and I just can't wait to get out of it. I'll just tell you guys that. So there is a lot, and when we do Chillin' and Killin', we do this in an hour. Tonight's going to be an hour and a half. So we kind of skim through a lot of these stories. You know what I mean? We give like the highlights. So we always kind of say, if you guys want to go down this rabbit hole, go ahead and go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I've been stuck in it for a little while. Okay, so I don't take notes often, but here's some notes that I've taken on my handy dandy notebook. And my guy that I just randomly Googled, and I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. And then I was like, what the hell did I just get myself into? Is Gerald John Schaefer. Now, I had never heard of this person until this day that I decided to take this person. And it said he was
either.
Yeah, so this became very interesting to me that he is such a horrific person. And so let me start. I do have some dates, and I don't usually do that. You know, you guys, that's where we're like talking about like this episode is a little bit more serious with us today. So he was born in 1946, John Gerald Schaefer, or Gerald. They always called him John, so I've been referencing him as John, but Gerald John Schaefer. So he was born in 1946. His parents, actually, he's an Aries. So all my Aries out there, I'm a little afraid of you guys. I'm a little afraid of you guys. And my best friend Kyra, she's an Aries. If she's on this, I got my eye on you.
Every Aries now is like, me?
Yeah, all the Aries are like, what? But yeah, he's an Aries, and he was born to Gerald John and Doris Marie. Now his dad was a traveling salesman. His mom was a housewife, which back in 1940s, that's kind of how that rolled out. Very strong religious family, to where basically his father instilled in him as there's only two types of women, basically the saint or the whore. So this is like brought into him really, or like there's no middle. There's no middle. You know what I mean? There's no middle. It's just saint, whore. Okay.
That's
so to him, basically,
school. Like so old school religious.
And back then, you think about it, like anything a woman did was whore. Like to be a saint, you had to do you had to just stay super perfect. So he grew up really kind of I wouldn't say like abnormal. Like his dad was, there was abuse. Like his dad was an alcoholic and stuff like this. There was a lot of abuse, but nothing to what makes him become him. Like I can't even justify except the fact that he's just bad. Like that's the only thing I can say, because when he is, and once again, warning, so when he is younger, he starts off and he is very, like, we're talking, early adolescence. He gets into the sexual gratification of, he starts out, most people start out with animals, these serial killer types. He does start killing animals, but he takes it up a bit and he actually starts decapitating the animals and having sex, gratifying himself out of their head hole. So once again, what? Like I'm hearing this and I'm like, what in the world? So this starts Gerald's fucked upism, I would say, and it just escalates. So he actually gets into, in his teenage years, he's really into, bondage, all of that. I mean, we're talking early high school that he's into this stuff, to where he likes to see women in pain. But the thing is, he also drives from giving himself pain. Okay. Yes, that's basically what is happening here, Rusty. So you said it. So, but he cross dresses. Like he'll wear women's underwear and he'll tie himself up, even taking himself out and tying himself to a tree, bondaging himself, causing pain, and doing like the auto asphyxiation, that whole thing, and auto erotic asphyxiation. Bless you. So he gets into all of this, and when he went to school, like the people that described him in school were basically like, he was never, they didn't have really any kind of preference, like that person that doesn't really fit anywhere. Like they're not a jock, they're just there, and that's basically how he was. He was just, are you an Aries? No, I know you're Capricorn, but but he was just kind of just there. So basically the only thing the girls, like the one girl stated about him, she said basically like, you had to, like, he was a peeping Tom. So basically the girls, back then they would wear skirts all the time. Well, she said Gerald would basically stand on his head to, catch you, to go up underneath your skirt. So all the girls were kind of like, let's tuck our skirt in, Gerald's around. And they would kind of like, get in, stay away from that, stay away from him. He was very intelligent. All his teachers were like very smart person, but he's growing up like this and realizing that I need to be in an authority position. That's going to give me grounds to do more. Okay. He tries to become, he goes and tries to become a teacher. He ends up, that doesn't work out. He ends up getting fired because he he doesn't really, he wants to like put his views on people. So it's kind of like, let's say you had a certain political view and you want to take it to the classroom and you're spewing that. And it's like, okay, you're supposed to be teaching math, not, you know what I mean? Civics. Like, what are you doing? And he was just like, no, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. And they're like, all right, this doesn't fit with us. And there's a lot of stuff.
So interesting. Like, I just want to throw this in quick. It's very interesting that you just said that, because most of the time you see that people go into powerful, you know, careers or situations that sort of feeds their monster. But in this case, he says, I need to get into
yes
an authoritative or powerful position in order to do what I want to do. That's crazy. Like, usually they grow within, you know, that's crazy.
And he was not, and with him, it was like, I mean, he always kind of knew he was messed up. So he starts dating, he starts dating someone right out of college. Okay. And he's with her and whatever. And she doesn't sexually gratify him at the end because he's into stuff that people can't satisfy. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine your loved one coming to you like, hey, baby, like, you know what? I'm kind of bored with this. Let's try beating someone. Like, what? You know what I mean? And he was really fascinated in hanging ropes. Like I said, the bondage situation was really fascinating to him and just causing pain of the women. So his first wife ended up divorcing him, and the grounds for the divorce was extreme cruelty. So I'm not sure, what went down there. She never really spoke too much of it, but to have that kind of label, I could just imagine what she went through. You know what I mean? So after, he goes, okay, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but he ends up, being trying to be a teacher, yada, yada, yada. Then he's like, you know what? A priest is going to be something that will go out there and I can bring people in. And the priests, there's a lot to become a priest. And they were just like, no, you're not godly. You need some work. Like we're not buying this.
Godly.
Like,
not godly enough.
Like, no, you didn't say the Corinthians, right? Go. You know what I mean? So they weren't buying it. So then what comes next? The police force. So he's like, okay, I can become a police officer. So he does become a police officer, and he gets let go pretty quick on the first one. And then he ends up getting a job at this smaller police, because he applied at a lot of places, but they were doing background checks on him, and his psych evals didn't come back well. Like, he just wasn't there. You know what I mean? So he ends up getting a job at a smaller police department, which probably couldn't afford back then, in a smaller police force, the type of background checks and psych checks that needed to be done. So
he gets in this that concern. They were just like, we all have whatever, like,
Correct. And he was, and I'm going to take it back a little bit, because when he was in younger, he ended up with his neighbor ended up coming up missing. And she was basically, he thought she would change in front of her window. To him, she was doing this to tease him. Not like it's her home. She can do whatever she wants in her home. She was teasing him. Okay. So he took that as she was pissing him off. She was a tease. Well, she ends up coming up missing, and it'll come down the road about her. So she's missing, yada, yada, yada. So when he's in college, he gets into creative writing. Okay. And this fuels a lot of his defense. Okay. So he gets into these creative writings, yada, yada, yada. And he becomes a police officer. So he, oh my God, this guy's crazy.
I love it when you need to take a breath just to go, oh, this is bullshit. Like, I love it.
There's just so much, you guys. Like, I couldn't even famine to cover this in the amount of time that I have. So I'm going pretty fast.
You're doing great.
Thank you. So anyway, so he becomes a police officer, and he's out. I mean, we're talking like he really wasn't a police officer long. Okay. So he just really got into this position to have that power. So he sees these two girls, and they're kind of like, they just kind of just met, these two girls, and he ends up, telling them like, hey, you shouldn't be hitchhiking. He gets them in the car and like, oh, yada, yada, yada. And he drives them home, and they kind of build this relationship with him. Right. And he ends up telling them like, hey, you know what? How about instead of you guys hitchhiking, we're talking the 70s now, hitchhiking was kind of like the thing. Like, that's just what people did. It wasn't really nothing that was, even though now we do all these true crime cases and we're like, no, why did you do that? You know what I mean?
Like,
but
no, hitchhike.
Yeah, and back then it was like,
do.
It's just what we do. But I mean, God, we do Ubers now, but whatever. I guess there's a better tracking system for that. But anyways, so he's like, you know what? How about I come and get you guys tomorrow, and I'll go ahead and take you guys to the beach so you don't have to hitchhike. And they were like, this is a police officer. This is like really awesome. You know what I mean? And hold on one second, because I'm pulling up some stuff real quick, but because I forgot. Gerald, John, I'm telling you, there's so much, you guys.
No, but you're totally right. Nowadays, we see somebody hitchhiking on TV, and I'm like, you're gonna die. And my husband's like, this is a Burger King commercial. Like, why does your mind? I'm like, no, she's hitchhiking. She's obviously dead. She's dead already. Come on. She's dead already. Like, she's not, she's hitchhiking.
Yes. So I wanted to just get their names because I didn't write that down, and there's so many people. So like Nancy Trotter and Paula Wells, which they called her Sue. Okay. So he goes back and picks them back up. So here they get an officer who he's in his car. He even calls the police department when he picks them up, and he's like, hey, I picked up these 2 hitchhikers. I'm going to take him home. He's following protocol. So to them, they're like, oh, well, he's in the up and up. You know what I mean? So the next day he picks him up. He's not in his police outfit. He is in his normal car. And they're like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to come on and get in. Well, and this touched base, and I'm going to steer off of this, and I'm going to come back on a disorder that I figured out when I was doing this. It's called authority bias syndrome. And what this is the fact of you ignore everything that all your bells and whistles are going off because this is some type of authority. So where you are knowing that this is wrong, you're knowing you shouldn't go, be a part of this.
What's
the fact that this is authority bias syndrome.
Okay.
And it basically just states that you're someone who's in a power position. You basically kind of you're going to believe that. You know what I mean? You're going to follow that because your body's telling you kind of have to, even though your body's telling you shouldn't. You know what I mean? So your mind's like, this is a cop. This is what I should be doing. But seems very inappropriate, but you do it anyways. You know what I mean? You don't stop. And this is where some of this stuff comes into with, the police crimes that we see. So Nancy and this Sue, we'll call her Sue, he ends up taking them. He's taking them to the beach, but he doesn't go to the beach. Okay. And they're like, well, what's going on? And he's like, I want to show you this really awesome tree. And they're like, okay. I mean, they're 17 and stuff. They're like, what? Okay. So they end up going with him, and he's like showing them the water. He's like, look at this. And they're like, okay, like, can we go to the beach? You know what I mean? And so then he's like, they said his mood changed. Like, he went from like this super nice guy to like cold, dark. And he's like, you guys are committing a crime. And they're like, what? And he's like, yeah, hitchhiking's a crime. And he's like, I can lock you up. And they're like, what are you and they're like thinking he's joking. So they're like, oh, lock us up. So he starts handcuffing them, and they were just like, okay, take us in. And next thing you know, he starts putting nooses around their necks. He's placing them up, and he's letting them know, look, I can sell you into slavery. Like, this is what he's telling these girls. And they're like, okay, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, this dude just went way crazy. So he puts these nooses around them, and he hangs them up on these on the tree, which is now called, I'm going to show you guys a picture of this tree. It's called, you can actually go see this tree. It's called the Devil's Tree. It's still there.
Where is it?
It's actually, probably Florida. Florida is where this all took place. I'm going to say Florida. I didn't get the exact location, but I will post that. But this is actually a pair. This is actually like a
tree. Where is it? Where is it? Like,
there's paranormal people that go out there, and that would be very interesting on our side of the paranormal, where I would want to post up next to that too. So that's the tree. It's going to be where the Martin County, where he actually is the police officer. So in that location, Florida. So Martin County is the place where he was a cop. So he didn't even leave his jurisdiction. You know what I mean? Like, when he did this, he didn't step out of his jurisdiction. He's completely in his own area of doing everything. Okay. So, and I bet this is Rusty with, okay. Like, I know he's where I got my location. I'm going to keep going. So anyways, so then,
wait, there's more.
There's more. Wait, this goes on for a minute. But so anyways, so these girls, he gets a call on the radio that he has to come in. So he's like, okay, well, they're tied up here. I'm going to take off for a minute. Go handle my business real quick. I mean, this is how like he just thought like, okay, well, the girls, they end up escaping. Okay. They end up getting down. They get help and they end up escaping. Now their story is very interesting. I don't have time to get all into it, but definitely look this stuff up because there's some bad chicks. So anyways, they end up escaping and he comes back. And the one girl even took her ropes with her. Like I wouldn't even have thought to do that. She took her ropes because she's like, if he comes back, I don't want him to re-rope me. Let me take this shit with me. You know what I mean? So she took everything with her where I would have been like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
But yeah, so she gets away and they end up even they go to the road in a different cop because what happens is he gets back there and notices they're gone. So he's like, I better do some damage control. He calls his commanding officer and he's like, I kind of fucked up. I did something bad. And the guy's like, well, what did you do? And mind you, this guy's just been on the job a short period of time. So he's like, well, I was trying to teach these girls a lesson. They were hitchhiking. So I hung them up and was trying to scare them. And I think they might like think something. I kind of messed up. So the commanding officer's like, what the fuck? So he kind of like sends people. He's like, look, I need you guys to kind of find these girls, like find them fast, like find out what's going on. So then yes, it is called the Devil's Tree. That is correct. So, anyway, so then he's sitting there and the cops get the girls and they're like telling him like this is where fired immediately. So they fired him immediately and charges are pressed, which I'm impressed that they fired him immedially. You know what I mean?
I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, so
oh God, keep going.
Please hold.
So they fire him immediately and they press charges on him. Okay. So they bring him in and set a bail. So he gets to go out on bail, come back 6 months. Okay. Within the 6 months, we have, oh gosh. Okay. So in 6 months, this guy, let's see, we have these two girls. Okay. Now, these girls were basically, kind of like free spirits, like, like, oh, I want to just go see the world. Now, when he's out on bail, he's going under a different name. He's going by the name of Jerry. Let me get it, guys. Let me see. Jerry Shepherd. Okay, so he's telling them his name's Jerry Shepherd. So there's really no like connection to him. Like he's telling them he's this guy. So the one girl tells her mom, like, look, I want to take off, I'm going to go with this guy, Jerry Shepherd, blah, blah, blah. Like she's really into him. She just thinks he's like super cool. He's playing the whole, I'm an officer, and she's trusting him and yada, yada, yada. Even though he's not an officer at this time, he's out on bail.
He's fired at this point. Okay.
But we don't have Google then. You know what I mean? We don't have Google to search these things. We just I'm sure he had cop stuff still that he's telling her like who he is. So she ends up, and she had epilepsy, this girl. So she ends up taking off. And her mom sees her, says goodbye. Her mom kind of had a weird feeling and she's like, and she took the license plate number down. Like she happened to take which is very crucial in this whole story. Okay. So the mom takes the license plate number down. Daughter is never seen again. Okay. And so now she's going to the police. Like, where's my daughter? And they're just like, run away. And she's like, no, she's not. She wouldn't have left her. She's like 19. Like, she's not going to leave her. She's older. Like, she's not going to leave her medicine. Like, no, like something has happened to her. She gives the officers the plate number of the person that was there. The officers write the plate number down wrong. Okay. What? Yes, they write the plate number down wrong. So they never get him for a period of time. Okay. Eventually he ends up, he goes through all this stuff and he ends up getting caught with that because the police end up, and the timeline, you guys, you can, to sit there and do this whole timeline is crazy. Like I have a couple dates, but you have to there's so much stuff out there. Yeah. So anyways, the mother ends up going to the plate, like, what is going on? Did you run this plate? And she looks at it, she's like, no, you didn't put the 2. It's 4-2. And they're like, oh, so they end up running the plate. It goes right to Gerald Schaefer. Okay. And they're able to get him and they go to his mother's house. They go in his house. They end up finding, this is what's so bizarre about this whole case. They literally find these. Okay. So these are the shoes of the girl that was missing. This is in his house. Okay. So they find this in his house and they find other trinkets that are in his house. Okay. And
how old was she? Jesus.
That's what I was gonna ask.
They literally look like children's shoes. I know they're not,
Like
but
a
I'm like,
toddler.
yeah, they're.
Yeah.
I mean, people were
Tiny feet.
smaller. I feel like people were smaller back then.
they
That's
weren't
many
Barbie dolls,
McDonald's.
Heather. I mean, they could, what the? She's like, people were smaller. They were this big.
They didn't
Like,
have
no,
like
what the?
they didn't have these fancy coffees that we drink with all the
What
sugars
the
in them and McDonald's on every corner. But anyway, sorry everybody. But so they end up finding like all this jewelry and stuff too. So in the jewelry, she was okay. They were both 17. See, okay. Thank you, Rusty. I love Rusty being on. He gets my facts. So, and I knew like he would have that. But anyways,
Oh, we
so
knew. You're hired now, Rusty.
You're hired.
Part of us.
You're our fact person.
Yeah.
I'm like, give me an age. Like he'll give me an age. So then, so they find these trinkets, and one of the trinkets is a locket, and the locket is the neighbor that went missing, Lee. So her mother. So back when I said the girl that was undressing in her window,
Yeah.
this is their locket, her locket that she finds. Her name is spelled different than what Lee is spelled. So the parents were able to identify and say, this is my daughter's locket. Was he charged? No. Did he have? He literally had so much stuff of people's but never charged for any of these things. Okay. Bodies are found. They are jawbones removed, decapitations. He writes stories about all of this. Okay. He starts writing. So he's incarcerated. He starts writing these stories about everything. And it basically like confessions. He gives the name. He gives how they died. He writes it in like an erotic kind of situation stories. Okay. And there's a collection of these so much that and he's basically sharing these, stories amongst the jail cell people. Like these are his stories. And, he used to date this girl named Sandra London. Okay. And she basically is like us. She gets into true crime and she's all like jazzed into true crime, finds out a guy that she dated back in high school is, on this whole murder thing. So she gets in touch with him and she's like, hey, how about you let me write a book on you? So she goes in there and he's like, well, I got one better for you. How about I give you drawings and these stories? So he starts sending her all of this stuff. Okay. And this is where I'm going to show you guys some more graphic stuff. So these are actual drawings from Gerald Schaefer and what he started sharing with Sandra. Okay. And everybody, Sandra actually has a YouTube channel that you guys can go to, and she shares his interviews. She shares all of her experiences with him. Like she has a whole run. She's involved with a lot of different serial killers. And so she really is like, she goes like to the jail and deals with them. So definitely check her channel out. But I blurred some of this stuff, but I mean, this is drawing.
He had to blur some of it out. It was
I did.
Nasty.
This one is very crazy. Like, I don't even know what the hell was going on in this picture, like the one that I blurred. But this is, I mean, you see a theme here. He likes women, big breasts, bound. I mean, he was into like, he would always kidnap two people. It had to be a blonde and a brunette. So he had that kind of MO. Yeah, that was his MO. Now
look
here,
at that picture. Like, we didn't even blur out the freaking decapitate. Like,
yeah,
you don't even want to know what's going on under the red blocks. Believe me, it's
bad. But you guys, you could go to Google if you want to see a little bit more. I just, I'm in Facebook jail a lot, and I'm just not trying to go there today.
In Facebook jail.
So I'm like, me just talking, I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble. But if you see on where it says "cut me off a slice," and that signature is Otto Toole, if anybody remembers who he is, he was actually jailed with him. And if you don't, he is the one. He's a serial killer that actually was confessed before he died to killing John Walsh's kid, Adam Walsh. So if you remember this story, this is him. So I'll get back to that some more in a little bit, because that's going to come back up in a little bit. So it's very interesting. This whole thing has got so many connections. So he's sitting in there. He's charged for, because when the mother gives the license plate, they charge him. Okay. He's just like, how can I be charged off of this lady? And I think the law was just at this point, they know he's a piece of shit and they had to get him for something. So there wasn't much, but I feel like he had his shoes, their shoes. He had, I mean, come on, try, give me a break. So he does end up, getting life sentences for these two girls, and he goes to the Florida prison. I mean, these are, so he's locked up. I mean, this is crazy. And you see where it says a whore always ends up hanging from a tree.
Yes, a whore always ends up hanging from a tree. Like, what the hell?
Sorry, everybody. I clicked off here. I'm leaving this up too long. So, and this was him, like, okay, so this is Gerald basically when he gets arrested. This is when he first gets arrested for the girls.
That's Gerald?
That's him at a young age. So this is him booked in. You know what I mean? Like,
he should be making pancakes at a friggin' IHOP. Like, what the? What is it? I would go with him in a second. Like, I'd be like, pick me up, Gerald. Like,
and he's a police officer. So you're thinking like, okay, this is a decent person. You're not gonna. I mean, you should question, and it kind of brings us to the fact that we should be questioning everything. You know what I mean? Like, we should listen to our bodies, our intuition. If something doesn't feel right, just go with it. You know what I mean? It's not worth it. You know what I mean? So, okay. So he also is housed with Ted Bundy. Okay. And everybody knows I'm a Bundy person, but whatever. I'm a psycho, but
whatever. I love him. It doesn't matter. Just move it
I'm
along.
just fascinated by the whole thing. So,
yes.
But yeah, if you serial card deck of cards, mine's Bundy. But anyways, so he's housed with Bundy. And what I want to do is right now, everybody, I want to play a little clip that I took and I'm going to share with you guys. And this is basically Gerald Schaefer talking about Bundy being kind of like obsessed with him. He doesn't admit to the crimes, okay, because in Gerald Schaefer's mind, or what he's trying to speak, he's a police officer. He knows how to hide everything. He knows what to say. He knows, he went through the training of what it was supposed to be. Plus, I feel like he's been going through this training. You know what I mean? Like, he's been conditioning himself. He's been known to get away. They think he's killed up to like 80 people. You don't start with just throwing people on a noose on a tree. That's not your start. You know what I mean? So he is basically, what they're kind of like, well, we can prove, but we can't stick them with these amount of victims. So this is what they have for him right now. But the list goes on and on and on. Okay. To where his stories, because he's mind you, he's writing all these stories of all these people. They're finding these people, and like to his story saying her jawbone was removed. I removed the top of her head and had sex with it. This is how they're finding these people, but you can't try him for. Anyways, so this is him basically saying like he didn't do anything, but how Ted Bundy idolized him. And you could kind of see the arrogance of him, how he's trying to be like, I'm better than Bundy. Okay. So I'm going to play this. It's about a 3 minutes and 30-second clip. Go. And here we go.
Well, I wouldn't say all the time, but I took he told me that he had followed my case in the detective magazines, and that he had killed 2 girls in Washington as a copycat crime, so to speak, on the place in Jessup. And I think those were Ott and Naisland. And he would tell me that he took them up on the logging road and strangled them, and had sex with their corpses, and went back and had sex with their corpses and cut off their heads. Like, it's a tribute. And I'm thinking, you motherfuckers that wrote that. I said, here's the guy who read it, believed your bullshit, and went out and did something like this. And now he's like bragging to me. It wasn't exactly a brag. It was like a tribute. How many did you get, really, Jerry? They said 34. Did they get all of them? Or do you have private graveyards? I said, Dad, I'm the best. What can I say to somebody like that, right? What can you say? You're left without any kind of rational response, because if you say, Ted, it's all bullshit. He's going to say, no, it's not. I know. And he knew, see, because he had lived it. And I hadn't lived it, except through what was written about me. And he was doing it based on what he had read. So he had 36. He wanted to be the best. And he was obsessed because they said I had 34. And he was afraid that I had ones that he didn't know about. See? And he was always trying to get me to say, no, that's all I got, 34, you know. But I never would say that. I discerned that he was concerned about the number. And it was my own way of needling him back by saying, I'm the best, Ted. You're going to fry, and I'm going to be here. And I'll be the best, just like they said. The number one. Mr. Stone had it all right. The best there ever was. And you're nothing. And you just go crazy. Can't be. And I'd take out my little thing from the Palm Beach Post. I said, read that, man. Cult. First page. Palm Beach Post. Cult. I'm the leader of the cult. There you go. Can't be. He was a sickie.
He was a sickie.
Holy.
So what is your feedback on that clip?
I
mean, do you see the narcissist? I mean, come on. You know what I
Complete
mean? Like,
I literally, I could picture him literally sitting at a table with Ted Bundy and being like, my dick is bigger. No, my dick is bigger.
Definitely
no,
a God complex.
Like, I could just,
100%.
But
it was crazy.
But also, like you said, like us knowing what Ted Bundy actually did, the narcissism of this guy, like he's going, oh, I killed these two girls. I took their skulls. I fucked them. He's going, no, you're basically just like a rookie. And Ted Bundy's going, no, I did this. And he's,
well, you know, he confessed probably to Bundy. I'm sure he gave Bundy deep details of everything, but to anybody that he wants to present this to, it's just stories. Like, you guys are reading into this. I'm just a really fucking good writer. Like, I don't know what your guys' problem is. Like, I'm really good at creative writing. Like, what the hell is your problem? Like, I'm locked up for being a good writer. Like, I mean, this is kind of where he's coming from with this stuff. And it's like, bro, like, no, you're a fucking crazy person. So he doesn't get, I mean, he thinks like he's untouchable, but let's shoot that picture up there. He is not untouchable because so I'll bring this one back. I'm trying to round my story up. So what happens to little Gerald, who thinks he's untouchable? Gerald takes that cop mentality, right? And he gets involved. First off, he wants to start like snitching on people in jail. He wants to, do certain, he's doing too much. Okay. But with this one, he starts actually contacting John Walsh and telling John Walsh that he knows where the remains of Adam is at. Okay. So he's basically at this time, this has not been told that he is actually the killer of Adam. So he wants to keep this a secret. Okay. And what happens is eventually they say that he was killed. And I actually was supposed to upload the picture, but sorry guys, I was throwing so many pictures out there that I did not get to the picture. But Vincent Rivard actually is who was accused of killing him. Now he was stabbed brutally in his cell. Like, and before this led up, like he was starting to get bullied really bad for what he's doing. Like people throwing feces at him and everything like that, which I actually have to piggyback because I forgot to tell you guys another sick thing about him, because this is all kind of karma to him at the end. When he would tie these women up on the tree, he got such a sexual pleasure out of watching them urinate themselves and everything, where he would actually masturbate to them urinating on themselves, defecating on themselves. Like, this was a big turn on to him. So Gerald ends up having the inmates are throwing feces on him. They're just terrorizing him because he's a snitch. So, which, I mean, everybody gets what's coming to him, but Sandra, she contacted the police department and was like, look, he gave me all this. I published this book, yada, yada, yada. You guys need to look into this. Like, this is getting crazy. So they were about to go question him about these other missing women and like seeing like, hey, can you give us something? Because this is really like a lot of coincidence here. And I don't believe in that. But he was stabbed over 40 times. They literally bludgeoned out his eyes because snitches don't need their eyes. They cut his mouth. They slit his throat. They literally just went in on him. Okay. And when they find him, there's only one handprint. So it's all his blood. And then one random handprint, which was Vincent Rivera's, that they were able to match, which he ends up coming out later and says, no, this was not me. This was Otis O'Toole or whatever, Otis Toole, because of the whole Adam thing. He didn't want him to say that because he was harassing their family so much, the Walshes, that he knew that they were going to uncover Otis for this crime and he didn't want them to do that. So he's saying Otis did it, but Otis was never tried for that murder or anything like that. They just gave it to Vincent, who was already serving multiple life sentences. So it basically was what they call a freebie in jail. You know what I mean? Or prison. So he basically, but he was kind of just like, I love your hashtag, but he was basically just like, no, he didn't want to take he's like, I don't want this one on me. You know what I mean? But he was tried for it, given some extra time, which it doesn't even matter. And then that's Gerald. Gerald is gone. And what I like about Nancy and Sue, who were the victims that, escaped, is these two girls that I saying, like, you guys need to really look into all of this stuff, is they literally took jobs and that they could have left, and they took both of them. And mind you, they were travelers. Like, they literally hunkered down in that town. They got jobs. They stayed there because they wanted to convict him so bad that they're like, the trial is over. And these women back in the 70s made sure that they stood tall together, and they, and these were new friends. And he even told them as new friends, they were like, you're gonna do what I say, or I'm going to kill your friends. Mind you, they just met. So they could have just been like, well, I don't really know her. You know what I mean? But they stood together and sorry. But and they were really able to be a good, if it wasn't for them, a lot of stuff wouldn't have felt, unraveled. So good job for them. And everybody look into this story for them. It's very gruesome if you get all into it. And I have to give a shout out to, a couple podcasts that I listen to. Like, there's a podcast that I listen to on Spotify called just Serial Killers. They do a great job. So if you guys ever listen to them, they're really good. And I'll actually post them because I like giving support to other people out there. Mm-hmm. And another one called Morbid. These girls did a wonderful job of their work and everything. So definitely go listen to them, because I got a lot of information from them. Plus, YouTube videos. But that's how that ends for Gerald. And Sandra, she ended up having to go on trial. I didn't get so much into her trial because, everybody, like, we do this for about a week and a half to get prepared for, and I was on St. Patty's Day, and I'm sorry that I was not feeling well and didn't get to get that done. But if you really want to dive into this case, like, she ended up going to trial for, because when somebody gets they write a book and they get the rights, the family wants money. So she had to go and do a trial for that because they wanted, monies regarding that sell that book. But her book, let me see if I put that up here. She was posting, let me see, I got a whole right here, Killer Fiction. This is basically his writings that she
paperback $150.
I just seen that too.
I had to share that. I had to share that. I love the Kindle is $9.99.
You like it? A happy ending with that shit? Like, holy shit! What the fuck?
I had to copy that because I'm like, whoa, like, sweet Alabama, that's crazy. Like, no.
I get tied up to a tree with that? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it comes with bondage ropes and stuff like that. So, but there's a few books out there. There's a lot of stuff out there about him. Like, I literally, when listening to like how the bestiality that took place, the fascination with the the urination and all that. And you really look into, you know, how, what is it? I can never say this word really.
Do it.
Perversion. Yes. And, you know, by definition states a sexual like thing that's just not normal. So like your gratification shouldn't be like, okay, normal, I have this mate, I'm attracted to them. Not normal, I'd be more attractive if their head was missing. Like there's levels to these things, you know what I mean? And it's like, where do we get to this? Like, where's the psychology as a child? You start doing this, that it's like, are you just born bad? And it's like, this one was really crazy to me because, like you said, Kirsten, he literally sought out the role of a police officer just to have that kind of power. So this was a kind of a different twist to me, where it wasn't like you get the power, like you were saying, and then you just kind of like elevate to that. He was like, this is something I can do and get into and be able to have access to these women, because my sexual gratification for this is so intense that I need an outlet. And this is the only way I'm going to be able to have great satisfaction to it. To when he just becomes a cop, he goes right in on it. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't even like wait till his probation period is up.
Well, yeah, so he didn't grow into it. He like already was like,
well,
I had a term I was going to say.
Yeah, he's a creep. He's such a creep.
The pictures that you showed, his illustrations, were those illustrations of what he wanted to be, or were any of those, did they know if any of those were actually?
No, that's how women were found. No, that's how women were found. They were always like hung, but shot in the head. Like, he'd shoot a lot of them, and he would. But you know, and what was interesting is, and I let me see if I took a picture back just recently, and I don't have it. I'll post some more stuff, you guys. There were so many pictures to this, but in 2022, they actually just were able in Florida to identify a girl that had been around that time frame. You know, they found her remains, and she matched. They were able to find, you know, who she was. They were finally, her mom was still alive. She's like 90 years old. They were able to tell her, like, look, we finally found your daughter in 2022. And this was in the 70s that she went missing. And the way that she died is the exact MO of Gerald. So they're like thinking she was another one of his victims, because he had a very distinctive MO with the decapitations, the hanging. Like, he had a very systematic thing to what he was doing. And look at it from when he was a child. He liked to be bound. He liked to be hung up. He liked to go to the trees. Like, where that all stems from is crazy to me. You know what I mean? But that just, this was crazy to me. So yeah, he died at 49. I mean, good riddance. I think he's they described him as basically like he makes Ted Bundy look like a Boy Scout. I'm sure Ted Bundy didn't like that, hearing that, but I'm sure, like, whatever. But yeah, he's,
but then, like, I even said, like, I know I put a comment about him, but we won't even get into it. But like, look at the difference of, this is what I love about psychology and true crime world and brains. Like, I said it had vibes of Ed Kemper, who also cut off his mother's head, had sex with the head. But when you, and anyone who's watched Mindhunter or any of these documentaries, you know this, Ed Kemper was like an enormous, giant, insane killer. But Ed Kemper lived the rest of his life getting education, teaching things. They said he was the perfect A+++ prisoner, sweet to everybody, kind, so intelligent that they didn't even understand how he, like, the model prisoner. And he did that stuff and talked about it very, not like it was okay, but, well, I felt that this was the act that would precede this, and now I'm here, and just very, like, but no one, I don't know, I'm not going to say nobody, maybe I'm wrong, but nobody looked at Ed Kemper and went, oh my God, I just listened to that interview and it scared the shit out of me. He was a psycho. He came across as very just normal.
Well, see, Gerald did it.
What?
Gerald didn't. Like, he came off like all his bells and whistles. Like, people even described him as the most sexual, deviant person they've ever encountered. Like, he was quick to tell you, like, this is how I see things. This is how, you know what I mean? But to him, it was, he would pitch it to you like creative writing. So that makes him more like, and where Ted Bundy might have been fascinated with him because Ted Bundy just did what he did. And he was able to do all this. And technically he got away with, he is not listed as a serial killer. Like, he killed 2 women at the same time, and he's not listed as a serial killer, because even though you can put it in there, because, you know, through time we've like, oh, he's a serial killer, but technically, as by definition of serial killer, he does not fit that category. And it's fascinating because if you look at these stories and what he actually got away with, it's kind of like, I don't want to say genius, but it's a way of like, I've never looked at, when it comes to the true crime world, somebody that wrote stories of exactly what they did, published them as erotic tales, but you're finding these bodies of like, and he's literally using their names. Like, Cheryl was killed down, and this is how, and they find a Cheryl. I'm just using names, everybody. Don't check me on this, but you know, they're literally finding this person who, in his story, is missing her jaw, is got, you know, a birthmark on the, you know what I mean? And it's like, how are we not prosecuting? I mean, maybe because it's back then, but it's like, I just like, what? Like, it's so crazy to me. So like, I don't know. And in Sandra, the one that she took the story, she was like, this is the most gruesome thing. And if you look at the reviews, like, I haven't read that book because I just, you know, I'm going through everything, but I don't think I want to. Like, it's crazy. But if anybody wants to check it out, I guess the stories in there are just heinous. Like, they're just like gruesome. Some people say they can't even get through reading them. They're just so intense on the sexual devianceness, and everything is just awful in these stories. But this is things that I feel actually happen to women, considering they're finding their bodies and remains exactly like his stories. So the fact that he got away with this, in my eyes, he's in jail. He got what he deserved. Karma's a bitch. You know what I mean? But technically, these women, a lot of them didn't get the justice that they should have got from him. And their names are sitting in a fucking book story on how they died. How crazy would that be for the family to have to read that kind of shit? You know what I mean? So, but that's that. That's Gerald Schaefer. If everybody wants to, I try to do that pretty quick, everybody. I hope I did it some justice. There's so much more, everybody, that check it out if you want to check it out. It's a crazy thing just to jump down and see like his whole mind path from being young. And it's a great, crazy story. And I'd never heard of him. So I was like, Jesus, how did I not hear about this guy? Well, I think he just had some sexual habits. Like, so I think he was just born. Some people I feel are just born. I feel like, take a picture of that brain. Take a picture of that brain now and let's see what it looks like. You know what I mean? Not saying because we can off them up.
Brains have we studied and taken pictures of? And I'm not doubting. I'm just saying, like, there's been so many brains that we've been like, we're going to look at this brain, see what, and that's the scariest thing of all. Like, even with all of our interest, if you take it to the root level, we all are scrambling to find like a pattern or a reason or an explanation or something. And
people are just bad.
It really just does beg that question. Like, can someone just be born bad? That's it. Is it something hereditary? Is it something that happens when the mom is pregnant? Is there something you don't know? And that's the crazy thing, is even I do. Like, we sit there and try to connect the dots and be like, okay, what's
you want to find reason?
Yeah. What is the reason? But can you just be born? And it might not even be something supernatural. I mean, something in your brain might be just different, you know, the way it grows and you think of things differently. But it's just crazy to think, like, why are people like, why do they do the things they do, you know? And
no, I feel like people are born. I mean, you see some people, like, they come through and it's like, okay, they had this really messed up childhood, yada, yada, yada. But people have messed up childhood. I mean, everybody's had some kind of really messed up childhood. They don't all become serial killers. So it's like, I don't buy that. You know what I mean? Like, where one person would, you know, okay, he watched his mom be beat, so he beats his girlfriend. Then you got someone who watched their mom be beat and make sure they treat their wife so good. So you can go either way. So I don't think it does something in their brain. You know what I mean? It's just,
some people are just born without a moral compass. Like, it's just not there. So they don't know and they can't be taught between right and wrong, you know, like where most of us can because we're empathetic. We have a moral compass. I think some people just like not necessarily born bad, but not born with the correct equipment all the way, if you will.
And I love that. And that's where we're going to leave this on that note. That's a good way to send that out. So everybody check your moral compasses, you know, check them. And we are coming back. What's the next date for the next show, everybody? This one, an hour and a half. I think we did good. We wrapped it up. We said an hour and a half. We did good, ladies.
We did really good. So the next date is 2 weeks from today. It's April 6th. And I don't have a topic for that one written in my little calendar.
I probably have it in mind. So we will throw up one of our cool little posters that we like to do, everybody. So, thank you. We're glad you enjoyed this. It was a crazy show. Like, you guys just check your moral compasses. And also, you know what I mean? Don't always check your body. If your body and your mind is telling you to run or stay away from something, do it. Don't be caught up in that authority bias syndrome. Let's think, you guys. Like,
and my final thought will be just say no to Peterson. For everybody, if you are dating or married to a Peterson, just rethink that. You could meet a Smith or a, you know, I don't know, just
anything else.
Anything else, literally.
Just say no to a Peterson. Run.
It never ends well.
That's my advice.
It's going to be a new shirt. I'm just saying.
I love it. That's an issue. And starting next week, everybody, during the beginning of our show, we're going to throw down, Gigi's going to break out a list of our merch. So she has come up some really cool stuff that we want to share with you guys. She posted out a lot, so you guys can go look at our page and see it. But we also want to start just sharing some of the cool stuff we have that you guys might want to go ahead and get to support our true crime podcast here. So so we will showcase that at the beginning of each show. So make sure you guys are here to see that. And we will come back in 2 weeks. And that's all I got. You guys got anything else? All right. Bye. Stay chilling and killing, everybody. Have a good night.